Hello, this is Dr. Rick Hofer, the instructor of this course. I want to talk with you about the management consultant project that you have due in this course and how it relates to the first paper you did, which is the interview with the director or other manager. So this paper is worth 100 points. And while you're interviewing an executive director, which is the other assignment, one of your tasks is to collect detailed information on a problem that agency is currently facing. This can be the same administrator that you used in the interview or another one. So in order to write this paper, you must have at least 2 contacts with representatives of the agency. One contact can be the executive director from the initial interview, and the other contact must be with someone other than the executive director. So what are the kind of issues that administrators might face? Well, they might include board-staff relations, the lack of a sufficient funding base, staff retention, all sorts of things. So it's kind of up to you to figure out or to ask the administrator in the interview what one of those problems is and try to get some details about it. So you are taking the role of a management consultant, and you will write a paper which addresses that specific agency problem and how to fix it in that agency. The reason you need 2 different people to talk to about this is to get 2 different views. It would be impossible to 100% believe what one person says, although they certainly could have a lot of information. So you need to triangulate a little bit in terms of what the problem is. So you will develop a consulting report which is no more than 6 to 8 pages long. It includes an action plan, and that may be attached as an appendix. So you could have up to 9 pages, really, 9, maybe even 10 if you have a long action plan. So what's required in the paper? Well, first you'll start off with a brief description of the organization, including the structure and operating theory of the organization. That is, how does this organization work? Is it top-down? Is it bottom-up? Is it collaborative? Whatever the operating theory might be. And this can be very much related to the administrative perspective of the top people in the organization. And that's something we cover in the class. So you'll be doing that brief description. And then you'll move on to what your viewpoints are as a consultant. And this is a personal statement of your own view of organizations and operating philosophy that will guide your assessment and recommendations. So this part is your viewpoint as a consultant. You will include a personal statement of your own view of organizations and operating philosophy that will guide your assessment and recommendations. So you may very well be kind of a human relations theorist kind of consultant. And if so, that will influence what you see as possible solutions to the problem that is being uncovered. So you need to include that just to make it clear what your perspective is and where you're coming from. The next part is an assessment of the problem. Now, the assessment of the identified problem will use data and feedback from the agency. So that's important that you don't just you need some data in your assessment, just like any kind of assessment. And in this assessment section, you'll include the stated problem as well as your personal assessment of the problem. And your assessment of the problem may or may not be the same as what the people at the agency tell you, or one of the people at the agency tells you. The next section is a literature review. Now, the literature review is to learn what the best practices are in agencies having that kind of problem. How would you fix it if you're having issues with staff retention? What would you do to improve board relations with the executive? The literature has a lot of information, and this is where you'll turn to get some of the ideas for how to fix it. Your next section is the recommendations summary. This will be a summary of the practical recommendations for the organization to implement based on the data that you've uncovered and the literature that you've read. This is very important that you have accurate recommendations that can actually be used in the organization. And the final section is an action plan to implement your recommendations. This is a one-page, and I'll give you two, a 1 or 2 page action plan for the administrator to follow in order to implement your recommendations. As a consultant, you're getting paid to solve the problem, not just to send in a report. So this is a very important part of your paper. So that's it. And remember, it's very important that you combine this paper and your knowledge of this paper while you do the interview with the administrator, which is the other assignment. These two fit together very closely, and you can't do this one very well if you don't have the information. So have fun with it, enjoy, and I look forward to more questions and to reading your final papers.